Hello everyone, I'm here in Compton Verney, which is the most beautiful house, quite close to Stratford, and it's a beautiful summer's day. It's actually rather hot, so I don't know how long I'm going to remain creaseless, but here I am. And I'm here because I want to celebrate 40 years of Conan the Destroyer. Yes, it was back in 1984 that Conan came my way, and I was already on Falcon Crest playing Pamela Lynch, and had come from England, come from Superman, and was quite happy just doing what I was doing on Falcon Crest. I didn't know that I wanted to do Conan the Destroyer, and to be absolutely honest, they came a couple of times and I said, I'm not sure, but I'm quite happy. And then they asked me to go and at least sit down with the wonderful director, Richard Fleischer. Now, Richard was then in his late 60s. He was born in something like 1919, and he was an absolute gentleman. He was of the old school. He'd worked with some of the great Hollywood stars and a lot of the English stars as well. And he was my kind of a chap. He was just polite and gentle. And of course, the difference nowadays is that I probably wouldn't have gone and sat down with Richard Fleischer. I would have had to have done a self-tape or an audition piece, which would have been ghastly. And on reflection, I realized that meeting a director, going and spending time with that director, he needed to see if I was the right person for the job. You can't get that in 2 pages of dialogue, which is what I would have got for a self-tape. He wanted to see that I could be a warrior. He wanted to see if I could command an army. He needed to know if I could be a seductress, if I could be sexy, if I could be believable, if I could be a witch, magical, because that's what was in Conan, all those things. He wanted to know if I could articulate and speak, because let's face it, we had a bodybuilder, a rock star, and a basketball player, and some actors. And I got an awful lot of dialogue because it was needed. He needed to know that I was capable of all those things. And I also needed to know that I liked him, because it was a big commitment to me, because it meant I was filming in Burbank, in Hollywood, and I had to get on a plane and fly down to Mexico City each week to film, and then come back and do a few more days on Falcon Crest. So it was quite a commitment, and one that I'm very, very pleased that I took. I'm also pleased that I got to wear all those fabulous outfits. I mean, my goodness me, we had a lovely gentleman, John Bloomfield, who was the designer. He's Welsh, but again, very much my cup of tea. He came over to my house and spent some time talking to me and fitting these extraordinary costumes. Of course, the one that springs to mind, as most of my fans will know, is the one with the eagle on the front. Now, this particular dress, I was pretty much naked underneath. And in fact, they didn't use this outfit too much. I think they'd started to realize they were going down a slippery slope as far as the ratings went. They already had problems with a few of my scenes, notably the love scene with Arnold. However, let's get back to the dress. We'll talk about that later. So the head of the bird was magnificently there, and then it swept down there. And dear John came to my house and he fitted me. What we didn't practice was what happens when us ladies move around. And when I move around, they moved too. So periodically they'd have to stop filming because the wonderful eagle, or was it a crow? It could have been a crow actually, with its big beak, periodically would fly slightly off kilter until it looked as if it had got the most delicious juicy berry in its mouth. Now don't be shocked, because you can't be shocked if you're fans of mine, but suffice to say that had to be cut. We couldn't have that. And that was a beautiful outfit. Then of course the incredible black leather costume that I wore with the helmet and everything, which was another thing I have to just add to the list of things that the director had to find out. He had to find out if I could ride a horse. I could. Grace Jones had never been on one, or if she had, she'd never ridden it, and that was quite a shock, but I think it shows in the film, because she's hanging on for dear life, but of course nothing frightens her. I can ride and could ride, so I was very happy on that horse, although I was terribly hot. It was terribly hot then. Anyway, that outfit was leather. I loved it, and it got the white stripe, and it was a magnificent outfit. And then I had a couple of other ones. I also had another very sexy, raunchy dress right at the very end with slits up the side and bits of leather across it. I mean, the whole look John Bloomfield, I hope he got lots of awards because the outfits were spectacular and I was very happy. As for what Grace Jones was wearing, well, we won't go there, will we? This is not exactly the same as that magnificent horse that I was riding in Conan, but isn't it gorgeous? I think it's pulling... Is it pulling peanuts? I'm not sure. Let's go and have a little look. Do you think those are peanuts? I don't know. One of the wonderful things about Conan, as I'm sure you're all aware, is that I have made some really long time friends. The best of all being dear Grace, who I was with just a couple of weeks ago in the north of England for a wonderful show in Halifax. I've known her since those days. The other one is Olivia Darboux. Dear sweet Olivia, who was this sweet, innocent, virginal... Well, I think she was. I never asked. Of course she was, because she was very young. Dear Olivia, who I've been able to see in LA, and I've watched her grow into the most gorgeous, sexy, fabulous woman. And whenever I see her, she tells me that her time on the set in Mexico with Grace and I was very, very much part of her growing up. God knows what she heard and what she saw, but she's a fabulous girl today, so we must have been doing something right, eh? Hope so. I'm in this perfect chapel, and I don't want to be disrespectful, so I'm not going to talk that much, but I want you to see how beautiful it is. But it does remind me of Dagoth. Do you remember Dagoth in Conan? The Hall of Dagoth. I had to seduce that stone thing, because it was all part of the sorcery. Anyway, it seemed I did such a good job that was another scene that they cut, because it was just too much. As if I would do anything crude with a bit of old horn and stone. But look at this, just look around. I mean, absolute beautiful windows. In memory of Henry Lord Willoughby de Broke, 1844 to 1902. And here lies the body of the Reverend Honourable William Verney. Died in 1683. 1683. Almost as old as I am. So I'm sitting here in these beautiful grounds of Compton Verney, and these lakes and the gardens and everything were designed by a very famous designer called Capability Brown back in 1760, something like that. So it really is very historical, and I'm thrilled to be here. Talking about historical, let's get back to Conan. Now, there was a lot of blood and gore in Conan, a lot of blood and gore, but not much sex. There had been quite a bit of excitement. I think that's a fair thing to say. When I had my love scene with Arnold, and I remember they oiled him up and he was very shiny and oily, and I had my crown on, and I provided the sexual momentum. But unfortunately, I was so damn sexy that they cut the scene. The scene with Arnold was reportedly too hot to handle. And they wanted to get the rating so they could get the kids in, and it seemed that that was too much. And of course, the other thing that was cut was my seduction of Dagoth. Dagoth was the stone statue, and I don't remember doing this, but it seemed I seduced the stone statue. Enough said, the point of it was just too much. So that got cut. I'm not sure if the scene where I slap Wilt Chamberlain is in it. I can't remember. Wilt Chamberlain had an incredible reputation for having been close up and personal with many ladies. He wasn't close up and personal with me. In fact, I was Queen Taramis, and of course he was my henchman. It took us a little while to get the characters sorted out. I don't think Wilt was used to having a woman bossing him around, and I certainly did boss him around. And in fact, I have to slap him in the film. And I did it a couple of times, and it's not that easy to slap somebody, because if you're a sensitive flower like I am, you're very gentle with your slapping. Unlike Margot Kidder. Anyway, that's another story, that's Superman. But as far as Conan went, I had to slap him, and I did it a couple of times, and he said to me, and if you'll excuse the word, which I don't know whether it's a bad word or not, but he said, "Slap me, bitch!" because I wasn't doing it hard enough. Well, I didn't need an invitation, and I thwacked him. Brought tears to his eyes, but I won him over. And he and I became firm friends. And of course, he was incredibly tall. He was as tall as Arnold was not so tall. In fact, I think Arnold was smaller than me, but periodically he looks taller than me. So I don't know quite how that works. I have an idea. Anyway, it's all the same lying down. So when Conan and I were lying down, we were all the same length. So it was all fine. So that was Wilt. Delightful, but quite a handful. Arnold, of course, was Arnold and was so much fun. He had a lovely group of friends that were all in the bodybuilding world, and because he was most of the time was working out to keep that incredible physique going. And he had a very dear friend, Sven-Ole, who I became very close to and still is a good friend of mine, and he was a delight. And we enjoyed all sorts of things down in Mexico, but the one thing that I did do with Arnold, which I can't say I'm pleased about, is I went to a bullfight in Mexico with Arnold, and they're all macho guys with their cigars and they're smoking and they're this and they're that and the bullfights. And I will never go again to a bullfight. I was pleased to be out with Arnold, but that was the extent of it. Anyway, lots of dinners, lots of fun, and whenever I see Arnold, he still greets me in the same familiar fashion. He puts his arms around me, clutches my bum, and tells me I need to work out more. Oh, Sarah, you need to work out more. And of course, Grace, what can I say about Grace? She and I'm not even going to go into the adventures we had in Mexico. But suffice to say, being my favourite expression, we had a lot of fun. I had met her briefly before in Studio 54 back in the 70s. Neither of us remember much about that, but the day I met her on the set, well, actually, it wasn't the set. She was having a photo session. I was brought in to be introduced to her, and she stuck her tongue out at me, and that was it. I thought, this is the most wonderful creature. I've never seen anything quite like it. And to this day, of course, we're still great friends, and she still sticks her tongue out at me. I didn't spend much time with the other guys because, of course, really, I was doing all the dialogue, as you know. What a lot of dialogue. The horn of Dagoth, the scrolls of Skelos. I mean, you just went on and on and on. However, the other stuff that the guys did when they went off on their adventures, I wasn't included in. I was in the palace most of the time. And then, of course, I went back to do Falcon Crest, as I mentioned. I'm just too hot. Who would have thought it? Here we are in England and it really is hot. I hope you enjoyed my little chat around Conan. I think we've pretty much covered all the bases, but any questions, feel free and I'll come back and answer them. Anyway, once again, thank you for joining me on this journey through Conan the Destroyer.